Welcome back to the Daily Bible Breakdown, and today we're beginning our study of the book of Leviticus, and we'll be covering chapters 1 through 3. Each of these first 3 chapters introduce the details of a specific kind of offering or sacrifice that the children of Israel were supposed to make to the Lord. Chapter 1 deals with the burnt offering, which was supposed to be an unblemished animal of some kind. Being unblemished meant it had to be free from any kind of deformity or disfigurement, and this ensured that it couldn't be offered without some kind of cost associated with it. There needed to be a sacrifice on the part of the worshiper who was offering it to the Lord. Now, there were provisions made for those who couldn't afford the more expensive animals. There were 3 different levels. There were cattle, then there were sheep and goats, and then there were birds. So everyone was capable of making some kind of burnt offering to the Lord. They were then supposed to lay their hand on that offering as a way of identifying with that offering being on behalf of their sins. And then the offering was to be cut up and sacrificed to the Lord following the very specific instructions you can read in chapter 1. This was probably the most frequent of the sacrifices to be offered. In fact, the priest was to offer a burnt offering every morning and every evening, and the fire was never to go out. It's interesting to note that sometimes this burnt offering is referred to as an aroma pleasing to the Lord, which indicates that it had something to do with appeasing God's anger. And though this was primarily intended to be an act of worship, it was still being offered by someone who understood they were a sinner who didn't deserve to be accepted by God. But it also points toward the ultimate sacrifice of Christ, who ultimately appeased God's wrath, as he is said to be a sacrifice to God as a sweet-smelling savor. Chapter 2 introduces us to the grain offering, which gets its name from the main ingredient, which was flour. Flour and oil would be combined with incense and then burned as a sacrifice to the Lord. Only a small portion of the flour and oil that was brought was actually used in the sacrifice. The rest was given to the priest for his own sustenance. This was typically offered along with the burnt offering and was used to give the sacrifice a sweet smell. Chapter 3 introduces us to the peace offering, or the fellowship offering, which was primarily intended as a means of fellowshipping with God. This is obvious when we see that the Lord received a portion of the sacrifice, the priest received a portion of the sacrifice, and even the worshiper himself received a portion of the sacrifice. And this would have been the most joyous and most flexible of the offerings, and was typically given as an expression of praise or to thank God for an answered prayer. Well, that's all the time we have for today's Daily Bible Breakdown. We will see you in the next episode.